An intriguing journey begins as a newly appointed warden descends deep beneath the Vatican, stepping into a hidden world unlike anything imagined. What he discovers beneath this sacred ground challenges everything he thought he knew about those he's entrusted to oversee, revealing a profound truth about the enigmatic residents and the purpose they serve. The elevator's descent lasted a full 11 minutes. Throughout the journey, I glanced at my watch multiple times, absorbing the steady drone of machinery carrying me deeper beneath the Vatican than any visitor had ever dared to go. Standing beside me was Cardinal Bishop, clutching a leather briefcase redolent of incense and aged parchment. Breaking the silence, he shared that the previous warden had lasted only 18 months, longer than most. When I inquired about his fate, the cardinal revealed it was an early retirement. His fingers tapped rhythmically against the briefcase handle as he mentioned Dr. Williams, who would soon brief me on the medical protocols, noting that the residents required specialized care. I had already reviewed their files during my 3-day orientation in Rome. The Vatican had specifically recruited me for this role, impressed by my innovative management of a maximum security federal prison in Colorado and my record for maintaining order without undue force. What the files hadn't disclosed was the actual nature of the beings I was assigned to oversee. 27 entities, each contained within individualized units meticulously designed by Vatican architects, sworn secrecy. The entire complex had taken 40 years to build, hidden under layers of bureaucratic and historical renovations. Official documents labeled it as a specialized theological research facility, but my final briefing with Vatican officials had revealed the reality. When the elevator stopped, polished steel doors slid open to a circular corridor lined with monitors displaying vital signs, temperature readings, and containment statuses. Dr. James Williams, a man in a white coat with exhausted eyes and a pale complexion, greeted us. He introduced himself with a firm handshake, exuding the professionalism of someone who had spent far too much time underground. Cardinal Bishop confirmed that the basics had been explained to me, and Dr. Williams led the way to the observation deck. As we walked down the curved hallway, the atmosphere resembled that of a high-tech space station more than a religious institution. Maintenance panels, emergency stations, a faint hum of ventilation, and the scent of ozone from the electronic apparatus. Doors numbered simply with thick glass windows lined a corridor. Some cells appeared empty with sterile furnishings, while others revealed glimpses of the enigmatic residents deep within, moving quietly behind reinforced glass. The elevator came to a halt, and the steel doors slid open to reveal a circular corridor, softly illuminated by screens displaying vital signs, temperature readings, and indicators tracking containment status. A man clad in a white lab coat stepped forward, extending his hand. Dr. James Williams, he introduced himself. "Welcome to Sublevel 17. I shook his hand, noting the firmness of his grip and the steady intensity in his eyes. Despite the weariness etched onto his face, the dark circles beneath his eyes, and his pale complexion. His voice was composed and professional. Cardinal Bishop nodded to him. "I assume you've briefed the warden on the basic setup. The warden knows what he needs to know." The cardinal replied before gesturing. "Take him to the observation deck first." We proceeded along the curved hallway, passing maintenance panels and emergency stations that seemed more fitting for a spacecraft than a religious institution. The air was tinged with a faint hum of ventilation and a subtle ozone scent emanating from the advanced electronic monitoring equipment. I counted the doors lining the corridor. Each was marked simply with a number and fitted with a small, thick glass viewing window. The first few rooms appeared barren, furnished only with stark white walls and minimal furniture. However, as we moved farther along, I began to notice signs of life and activity behind the glass. Between these occupied units, rooms serving other purposes stood out. A kitchen housing prepared meals warmed on heated shelves, a medical bay filled with devices unfamiliar to me, and a library stocked with volumes written in languages I couldn't recognize. Dr. Williams explained that each resident had individual needs the facility had been meticulously designed to meet. Stopping at cell 7, Dr. Williams introduced me to their eldest occupant. This is Nephilia. She's been here since the facility began. She was instrumental in helping us determine the ideal environment for these residents. Peering through the window, I saw a woman seated cross-legged on the floor, her back turned. Her long black hair cascaded down to her waist, and she wore a simple yet immaculate gray dress. With her finger, she traced intricate markings on the spotless floor. When I asked Dr. Williams what she was doing, he told me she was engaged in mathematical equations, complex theorems that had confounded scholars for centuries, yet she refused to explain her work. He mentioned that numerous Nobel laureates had sought her insight, but while she acknowledged their presence, she never answered their questions. The previous warden had attempted to build rapport with her and other residents, spending months trying to connect. Toward the end, he claimed they were sharing memories with him directly, showing him glimpses into their past. Unfortunately, the Vatican deemed his judgment compromised and moved him away from the post. Observing Nephilia, I was struck by the fluidity and precision of her movements, each equation laid down with clear intent and forming a mesmerizingly intricate pattern across the floor, a merging of art and advanced mathematics. Moving further, I came upon a man seated at a small table, meticulously folding paper into complex shapes with practiced ease and steady concentration. Dr. Williams identified him as Bale. Each month, they supplied him with exactly 1,000 sheets of paper, and with unwavering dedication, he folded all into a 6-pointed star, varying the patterns slightly in ways they struggled to replicate. When I inquired about preserving Bale's creations, the doctor indicated a nearby storage room, but explained a perplexing phenomenon. Every single origami piece dissolved at midnight sharp, regardless of when it was crafted. They tried various materials, storage approaches, and even documented his folding step by step, yet the final pieces invariably vanished on schedule. I studied Bale through the glass. He appeared middle-aged, his hands careful and practiced. Suddenly, he caught my gaze and held one of his delicate paper stars up to the light before gently setting it down. "They know we're watching," I remarked. Dr. Williams nodded. "Always. Though awareness doesn't always mean reaction. Some acknowledge us, others ignore completely. A few haven't even glanced outside their rooms in all their years here." As we continued, I noticed the monitoring stations adjacent to each cell displayed a variety of metrics. Heart rate, brain activity, and temperature were standard, but some readouts puzzled me. When I asked, Dr. Williams elaborated that these beings' physiology wasn't entirely human. While similar enough to permit basic care, their unique requirements led to the development of specialized medical protocols. For instance, Bale didn't need traditional sleep. Instead, he entered a 4-hour meditative state nightly, one that bore no resemblance to human REM cycles. At cell 12, a woman stood perfectly still in the center of her room, eyes closed, arms at her sides, unwavering for 7 years. Nutrition was administered intravenously, which she accepted passively. Dr. Williams named her Seraph, though the identities they carried now were assigned by Vatican authorities. Their original names had long been lost. Cell 15 housed a teenage boy absorbed in reading a book. The scene was normal until I noticed the book floating approximately 3 inches above his hands. For 4 months, he had been reading the same novel, To Kill a Mockingbird Star. When he reached the end, he simply started again. When I asked why, the files noted it reminded him of home. Our tour concluded at the observation deck, an enclosed glass room overlooking the facility's central area. From there, I could observe multiple cells, watching the residents engage in their daily activities. Dr. Williams pointed to an adjacent room. "Your office is through that door," he said. "You'll have full access to monitoring systems, medical reports, and incident logs." Cardinal Bishop then handed me a thick folder detailing immediate concerns. 3 residents had demonstrated behavioral changes in the past month, and my evaluation was needed to determine if enhanced containment measures were warranted. I took the folder, absorbing the information. Subject 17, Raphael, had begun humming each day for exactly 17 minutes. Despite soundproofing, the humming carried through the entire facility, altering the behavior of others. This was the beginning of discovering the nuances in the lives of those contained here, each remarkable in their unique existence beneath the Vatican. The elevator came to a stop, and a folder was placed in my hands filled with reports of recent behavioral changes among the residents. 3 individuals, in particular, had exhibited shifts that warranted closer scrutiny. The first was Raphael, a man in his 30s with kind features, whose seemingly simple habit of humming had turned into a complex ritual. The humming began 3 weeks prior, lasting exactly 17 minutes each day, filling the facility with a layered melody that seemed to resonate beyond the soundproofed walls. Despite our efforts to analyze the frequency and patterns, its purpose remained elusive. Not only was it audible throughout the compound, but it also appeared to affect the residents. Some paused their routines, others shifted their usual behaviors. I was told by Dr. Williams that this humming correlated with subtle yet noticeable changes in the occupants. Nephilia ceased her equations momentarily, tilting her head toward her door as if listening. Baal halted his origami folding, and Seraph opened her eyes after 7 years of stillness, briefly breaking a long-standing posture. These developments hinted at a form of communication or shared response that transcended previous observations. While none of the changes involve hostility or aggression, the synchronized alterations suggested a coordinated phenomenon that demanded further investigation. As I reviewed the surveillance footage, I noticed patterns emerging. The humming was more than a solitary act. It seemed to act as a signal that connected the residents in a delicate balance, influencing their behaviors in subtle, meaningful ways. This raised an important question. Were these shifts spontaneous, or was something within the facility prompting them? The usual protocols dictated caution, but the unusual nature of these changes meant adherence to existing practices might no longer suffice. I gathered the senior staff and voiced my concerns. While acknowledging the atypical nature of these behaviors, we agreed to continue observation without interference for the moment, seeking to better understand the evolving dynamics among these enigmatic beings. In seeking answers, I also learned that empathy between the residents was growing stronger, revealing unexpected depths in their interactions. It was clear that the surface of their existence concealed a profound level of connection, far beyond what I had anticipated when I first arrived beneath the Vatican's hallowed grounds. As I delved deeper into Patterson's sparse, handwritten notes, I found myself questioning the very nature of these residents. His last entry stood out starkly. "I don't think they're prisoners." That simple sentence unraveled much of what I thought I knew. Days earlier, Dr. Williams had mentioned that these beings were considered fallen, beings who had once tried to steer humanity's course with perilous influence. They were not simply inmates to be controlled, but entities who bore the weight of their past interventions. Patterson's observations, though deemed unreliable in his final weeks due to increasing psychological strain, hinted at something more profound. The residents' behaviors, their peaceful routines, and their intellectual pursuits suggested a containment not out of punishment, but out of necessity. They were confined, yes, but willingly so, perhaps as a safeguard against their own potential to disrupt the delicate balance of human existence. The more I examined their medical and behavioral records, the clearer it became that these entities weren't threats locked away as criminals, but custodians of knowledge, waiting for humanity to achieve a certain maturity. Their presence here was less about imprisonment and more about a suspended state, an interval for reflection, growth, and perhaps redemption. This revelation reshaped my entire approach. The residents were not adversaries, but participants in a complex, cosmic accord. I realized then that understanding their history and purpose was crucial, not just for my role, but for the broader implications of what they represented to humanity's future. Through a series of enlightening interviews, the Warden gained profound insights into the lives and philosophies of the residents beneath the Vatican. His conversations began with Nephilia, the oldest resident, who revealed the true nature of their confinement. She explained that their presence was voluntary, a self-imposed exile designed to protect both themselves and humanity from the unintended consequences of their past interventions. Despite having once sought to steer human affairs towards peace and prosperity, they realized their actions disrupted the natural flow of growth, denying humanity the essential experience of struggle and failure. Nephilia emphasized that their continued stay was a collective decision, providing a space where they could exist without influencing the world's course, while sharing their knowledge selectively and cautiously. This revelation shifted the Warden's perspective from viewing them as prisoners to understanding their role as custodians of a delicate balance. Subsequent interviews deepened this understanding. Baal, whose intricate origami models symbolized complex scientific breakthroughs, explained that his creations dissolved each midnight as a safeguard against premature human exploitation of these advanced solutions, protection against humanity's potential misuse of power before they were ready. Raphael, who expressed himself through a unique humming meditation, indicated that their waiting was nearing completion, sensing change with the Warden's arrival. This subtle signal suggested an awakening, a readiness for the next phase of their existence dependent on humanity's moral growth. Finally, the youthful yet wise Gabriel reflected on the importance of moral courage and the necessity of human struggle. He illustrated how their initial interventions stemmed from fear rather than bravery, interfering with humanity's right to confront challenges independently. Gabriel spoke of future missions to guide other civilizations through similar journeys of growth without repeating past errors. Together, these conversations unveiled a shared purpose among the residents, a patient, watchful wait for humanity to earn its wisdom, teaching that true progress arises not through imposed solutions, but through lessons learned firsthand. This transformative understanding redefined the Warden's role, aligning him with their hope for humanity's awakening and the eventual fulfillment of their collective journey. Upon receiving the Warden's groundbreaking report, the Vatican found itself at a crossroads. The assessment challenged long-standing beliefs by revealing that the residents of Sublevel 17 were not prisoners in the traditional sense, but voluntary participants in a profound educational process. Accepting this truth meant acknowledging their immense power and the delicate balance maintained by their confinement, an acknowledgement fraught with risks and uncertainties. Cardinal Bishop convened with senior Vatican officials to deliberate the implications. The core dilemma centered on whether to publicize the residents' voluntary status and risk humanity's demands for direct interaction, potentially triggering the very interference the containment sought to prevent, or to maintain secrecy, preserving the current arrangement but perpetuating the misunderstanding. The debate was intense and protracted. Some feared that recognizing the beings as willing participants would destabilize humanity's perception of control over such forces. Others argued that transparency and respect for the residents' autonomy were essential for ethical stewardship and could lead to a more enlightened coexistence. Throughout the discussions, the evidence provided by the Warden, including recorded interviews, behavioral studies, and surveillance, serve as the foundation for reconsideration. The peaceful, almost meditative routines of the residents, coupled with their profound insights, underscore their role not as captives, but as guardians of a difficult lesson humanity was meant to learn. Ultimately, the Vatican acknowledged that clinging to fear and secrecy could undermine the very purpose of the containment. The decision to recognize the residents as honorary guests marked a significant shift in doctrine and policy, setting the stage for new dynamics between humanity and these enigmatic beings. This acknowledgement balanced caution with respect, understanding that humanity's readiness to embrace this truth would dictate the course of the coming transformations. Following extensive deliberation, the Vatican reached a pivotal decision regarding the inhabitants of Sublevel 17. After reviewing the Warden's comprehensive report and consulting with Dr. Williams and senior officials, they acknowledged the voluntary nature of these beings' confinement. Recognizing them not as prisoners, but as honored guests signified a profound shift in understanding. The Vatican resolved to treat the residents with respect and dignity, allowing them the freedom to depart when they chose, while encouraging continued sharing of their knowledge through carefully controlled channels. This decision marked the beginning of a new era, one where humanity acknowledged the significance of the residents' sacrifice and prepared for their eventual departure, embracing the lessons they imparted. As midnight approached, the inhabitants of Sublevel 17 prepared to leave. One by one, the cells emptied quietly, not with abrupt disappearance, but with a gentle dissolving into light. Each resident's departure seemed to lighten the atmosphere, severing unseen bonds that had quietly connected them to the Warden's mind. Bale took his time for a final act of creation, folding one last origami star and placing it carefully on his table before fading away. The mural painter added the finishing touches to her artwork, a silent tribute to the world she was leaving behind. Gabriel closed the well-worn copy of To Kill a Mockingbird, setting it neatly on his bed for future scholars to discover. The last to leave was Nephilia. Before her own dissolution, she approached her cell's floor and, with deliberate precision, inscribed one final message: "Thank you for understanding." Her words lingered long after the light that once was her had vanished. As the facility grew still and empty, the Warden stood in the observation deck, reflecting on the profound departures he had witnessed. The residents had not just left a place. They had imparted a legacy of patience, sacrifice, and a value of growth through struggle. Their leaving marked not an end, but a hopeful beginning for humanity's future. Years after the residents of Sublevel 17 had departed, I found myself reflecting on the profound impact of my time beneath the Vatican. The lessons imparted by those extraordinary beings had forever changed my understanding of leadership, restraint, and the true meaning of wisdom. Returning to a more conventional correctional setting, I carried with me the knowledge that the deepest growth often comes from struggle and self-discovery rather than imposed solutions. Their departure had transformed the facility into a center of research, where scholars pored over the remnants of mathematical insights, intricate artwork, and haunting melodies left behind. Though their physical presence was gone, the legacy of their wisdom permeated the halls and minds of those willing to learn. In my work with human inmates, I applied these lessons daily, recognizing the fine line between offering guidance and allowing individuals the space to confront their own challenges. The beings beneath the Vatican had taught me that true courage lies in permitting others to navigate their path, even when equipped with the power to intervene. The universe, it seemed, was filled with silent teachers, and the courage to learn from them was the greatest gift of all. Recognizing that wisdom must be earned rather than handed down marked